There we go, and we're here. We're starting. This is the first ever, so I don't know what to do. I've never hosted a Google Hangout Live. It's always been Danny, but we're doing it, and technology has tried to get in our way, but we have overcome it. I am the Colonial Canon, Jason Schrader, and I've got an esteemed group of panelists tonight. Joining us first is AFC Freddy 8, a.k.a. Budget Jesus, a.k.a. Chris Pirates of Barbacania, and a.k.a. Chris Carpenter. Chris, how are you this evening?
I am well, Lord Shredder. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I am good. That was actually myself coming through the speakers there. We'll just act like that didn't happen. But next up is our resident lad, or excuse me, chief lad, and our resident scholar. He's also here to lower everybody's average age on the panel as well. It's Tom Canton. Tom, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Thanks for that beautiful and immature intro. Loving it.
You're welcome.
I'll apologise for in advance. Apple has stabbed me in the back with cellular network so far, so I hope there's no buzzing from now on.
No, shouldn't be any buzz. I think we hopefully got that all squared away. Next up is our resident bearded genius and Italian Serie A mafioso. It's John Welsh. John, how are you?
Very good, mate. Very good. I've just recently had the haircut, extended the beard a little bit, let it grow out a bit to keep the Serie A theme. So I'm looking a bit more Antonio Candreva nowadays.
Did you just pull the beard down a little more and that brought the hair?
Yeah, you just take a bit off there, add a bit here.
Gotcha. Well, happy to have you all. Some of you guys that are out there watching may be asking, why are we doing this? Main reason is it's super selfish. I was bored and didn't necessarily want to scour the dark rooms of the internet. Aside from when I do that on my own personal time, but didn't want to scour the dark rooms of the internet for all the latest transfer news and rumors, as well as it's the summer and we're all just longing for Arsenal, and I think that's probably why the silly season gets so bad, is because there's nothing else to do. No matter how much international football is on, we all love the Arsenal so much, and we want to make sure that we talk about and can spread our love for that. So that's why we're doing it. Maybe 4 or 5 of these, maybe 2 or 3 of these, we don't know. If you like it, please continue to watch and let us know that you want it. We do apologize that the chat box on YouTube is not up now, but for the next show it will be. As for the next show, your guess is as good as mine, but hopefully in about a week or two time we'll have some more news for you, and we can mull over all the latest happenings going on out in the transfer world. So let's jump right into it here. And let's talk about our outgoing players and who we've got right now. A bunch of youth team guys were cut. Rio Miyachi's gone to St. Pauli. What do you guys think about the clearing out of the deadwood? And we'll start with you, Tom.
I think it was necessary. I think Ryan Miyachi, I think I'm saying his name right. Yeah, he was just one of those players who. He had a lot of promise, and he just never really reached that potential we all thought he could get. I remember he came in from some Japanese high school, I think it was, and he was meant to be. He was said as the Japanese Ronaldo and all this, but it never really happened. I mean, he went to Feyenoord, and he actually had a good spell at Feyenoord. He scored a couple of goals, and he did really well. But then when he came back, he got a couple of first-team chances, whether it be the Carling Cup or late. I think I saw a couple of late Premiership appearances late on in a match, but no, he never really hit the ground at Arsenal, and I say good for him that he might be able to get some playing time in the German league. And in terms of the other players, that Ajayi or something like that, I can't really pronounce his name. Yes, he's gone off to Cardiff, which actually is quite a good move because he's going to get playing time, and it's a championship, so it's not like he's gone down to the bottoms of League One and League Two. So hopefully he can also, and I'm sure we all wish him luck. So yeah, that's my take on it.
John, what are your thoughts on it? I'm probably a little harsh to use deadwood, as it was a lot of youngsters who maybe just weren't developing as we would in the academy. How important is it? How depressing is it? How good is it for our youth team to be rolling over so many players like that, sort of season after season?
It's always difficult to say because we've got the new head at the academy and things are changing there, and there's obviously been problems there for quite a while. Not to sort of put a downer on anything, say Liam Brady or the work he was doing there, because obviously he brought through players like Ashley Cole and Jack Wilshere, but there was, I think you look at the results that the youth teams at certain age levels were getting, there were disappointing results. So you're going to have to cut players. There's no point keeping players there, and Arsene Wenger and Arsenal generally have always had a sort of a policy of if a player's not good enough, then let them have a career somewhere else. Don't hold them back. Some other clubs don't have that, not naming any names. We can all guess. So, the youth players, not surprising, you get them every season. Miyachi, again, like Tom said, wasn't really a surprising one. Did okay, did quite well in the Eredivisie. But the sort of goals and assists he was getting, he was always one of those players who was either going to go, yeah, he could be all right at, say, like Newcastle, Villa, if he could cut it physically in the Premier League. If not, then he was always going to be a continental player. But, I hope he does well. I think the thing with the youth players and the youth team in general, it'll be long term to see what happens because they obviously are making big changes in development there.
Chris, your thoughts on a lot of the younger generation as well as some more known names that have got some first team football moving on.
Yeah, I mean, sort of on the youth side of things, not a massive amount to add to what Tom and John have said there. Particularly on John's point with regards to players having careers elsewhere, and we've always been keen to do that and not hold development back of certain players. So that's good to see. I was a little bit surprised they let Jack Jebb go. There were quite good things expected of him. I know he's got a couple of good free kicks early on in the season, but as somebody rightly pointed out to me at the time when I said I was surprised, he was on loan at Stevenage and didn't really do a lot, so maybe that's the reason why. The Abu Dhabi one, I mean, we're not really sure what's going on there, are we, at the moment? It seems like obviously he's been technically is released, but there was a bit of talk last week, I think, about him possibly coming back in as a pay-as-you-play deal, so I guess we'll just have to see how that one works out. So I suppose he's the most established first-team player of the lot to go. And I'm sure we'll touch on a couple more that could follow on a more transferred basis. But no, it's not a great surprise. It happens at big clubs also every summer. There seems to be some quite high-profile names going. And if you look up and down the Premier League release list, there's quite a few, not what I'd say superstars, but players that you think, oh, they're free agents. Glenn Johnson, Sylvain Distin, people like that are just not going to be in the Premier League anymore. So it's kind of a natural process. And if it frees up money to bring in superstars or even high quality players, you got to do it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about positional needs. We've sort of hit on this. I know the guys on a Camp 1 Win have talked about it. We've talked about it on the radio show. I know, Chris, towards the end of the season. But let's just do quick rapid fire succession. We'll start with you, John, and then go John, Chris, and Tom. John, what are the three most important positional needs this transfer window?
Goalkeeper, central midfield, and a wide player. God, that's tough.
I'll go with exactly the same as John, Jace. I hate to be boring. Although I'm sure we'll touch on this in a minute, but I didn't personally think goalkeeper was a priority, but it seems that's what we're going for. So yeah, wide man over a forward for absolute certain.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. However, I could happily go into next season, and I'm not going to get slated for this comment, but go into next season with exactly the same team and think that we could challenge for the title. And the only reason that we didn't last season was because of injuries. So if with a bit of more luck with injuries, I think we could. I know John's looking like he's going to shoot me. So, I want players in. I'm happy to see players come in, but I'm just looking at it in an optimistic view. Say if the worst happens and the Czech deal doesn't happen and other stuff doesn't happen, and the worst happens if we don't sign anyone, I'm pretty okay.
I actually somewhat tend to agree with you there, Tom. I think my biggest need would be a sort of a holding or box to box, somebody to go beside Coughlin or spell Coughlin at times, and then use maybe a Mikel Arteta as a spot starter from time to time when you can. I do think to Tom's point. It was injuries at the very start of the season. I think we saw some of Shad Forsythe and maybe a little bit of his magic towards the end is you saw a little of those muscular pulls and strains and tears sort of dissipate where we've usually had them in the past. So I'm in Tom's camp. I do think we need to strengthen because, I would rather beat Chelsea by 15 points than 1 point for the title next season. That's just my personal opinion. But let's talk about, now that we've mentioned sort of where we need to strengthen, let's actually talk about a few individual players. And we're not going to cover in this, I'm calling it a vidcast because I hate the term vlog, because it's not a vlog, because this is live, and there are 22 of you out there watching us, 23 now, and we freaking love that, because we'd probably still be doing this if there was nobody, but the fact that you guys want to join us is awesome. So the vidcast we're going to continue to cover. We're going to touch on a few, though. Now, the first one I want to talk about is a guy who we've been linked with for a few years now out of Schalke. It's Julian Draxler, sort of a left-sided attacking player, can play a little deeper in midfield or can play a little more forward. Chris, I know I've heard you talk about Draxler in the past before. What do you think Arsenal would have to do to get him here, as well as where do you think he would fit in our system?
Well, what they'd have to do is probably what the manager's probably been criticised for a number of times in the past. Bite the bullet, pay the money, pay what's asked, and get the guy in. That sounds like a really simple thing to say, but it is true. We've fallen short of too many deals where we've dithered on the price. Probably the biggest one for me is Xabi Alonso all those years ago, and we quibbled over £1 million, and he ended up sort of spearheading Liverpool to a European Cup victory. So pay the money is the first thing to say. I think he's gettable. That's terrible grammar, but oh well. He's very much available, I think, from what you can gather. John will back me on this. Schalke are a team in all sorts of just all sorts of various things this summer. I mean, they've got players coming in, players going out. They've just replaced the manager with Paderborn's a manager. Oh dear. And he's, Brian Wright is a very sort of accomplished coach, and he surprised a lot in the German league. So he'll be looking to bring in his own players. And whilst Draxler is one of their very best players, he's also a very saleable asset. And if he is looking to bring in players, they're not cash rich. They've got a bit to play with, but they can't spend huge money, and they pay a lot on wages to sort of the Huntelaars of this world and the Howardis. So I can see a lot of change at Schalke this year, and I think if there was ever going to be a summer that you'd go and get him, it would be now. And I would also say that we were very heavily linked with him, was it last January, to the point where I think there must have been something going on there. And I just wonder if maybe the agreement was, he stays until the summer and we revisit it a little bit. What he'd bring to Arsenal is, it's probably a bit self-explanatory. I'll let John expand on that a bit more. But I think he'd be, if you're looking at a left-sided player with size, with style, and with that little bit of an X factor, I think he'd complement the likes of Ozil and Sanchez brilliantly.
John, who do you think, what other teams out there, whether they be Premier League teams or somewhere across Europe or across the world, who do you think we're competing with to sign a kid like Draxler, who's young and shown promise in a good league like the Bundesliga?
It's difficult to say. The obvious one from the Bundesliga would be Bayern Munich, but I don't think they're really in for that sort of player. I think they've got their eyes on other targets. Probably more than likely it would be someone like Man United, although they've already signed Depay. Draxler can play either side, or he can play behind a striker. And obviously there was talk before of maybe converting him to a striker. That the rumour was that's why Wenger wanted to sign him. There's no saying Van Gaal couldn't do that either. The fact that they've obviously lost Falcao now, Van Persie most likely is leaving. It's another attacking type player, so that's a real possibility. Van Gaal does have a big pull for young players because he is well respected from his time in Bayern Munich and obviously elsewhere in the continent. So I think they'd be our biggest rivals for him. But like Chris, he'd definitely be someone I'd look for in that wide area. The only thing that worries me is that he had quite a nasty injury and he was out for the majority of this season. He's only played, I think it was only 8 or 9 games he played for Schalke when he came back from his injury. So it's difficult to know exactly how well he's come back from that injury because I only saw him a couple of times. He looked okay to me, but it's something, someone like, say, Dom would know more about the exact injury and how serious that might impact his ability. But if he's anything like he used to be, he's definitely gettable. Schalke need to sell because they want to keep hold of their younger players like Max Meyer and Goretzka, whose name I normally get wrong. So yeah, he's definitely a gettable player, but I would think probably Man United is our biggest rival for him, definitely.
Can I just say as well, I just poured Coke into my slipper.
That's probably what it was.
Just thought I'd lighten the mood a little there.
Very good, very good. Just for those asking, I know Kelly Mayer is always asking me what I'm drinking. Today it's rum and Dr. Pepper is the mixed drink of choice on our Mad Men-esque always drinking vidcast here. Tom, I want to ask you specifically. Let's say we get Draxler. Probably going to be played out on the left. Obviously, Sanchez has played there. Santi's played there. Mesut's played there. But him being that left-sided player, already being somewhat established, how do you see the team shifting around us getting him if Wenger does play him on that left side?
I can see the first obvious thing is to see Sanchez move over to the right side of the midfield if Draxler is going to play on that left side. I also have a feeling because Draxler isn't the smallest of midfielders, he's a physical and a tall guy. It could benefit Walcott's case to be a striker because what you lose in removing Giroud's physicality from the game, you're going to gain that back with Draxler. However, you can still play Giroud up there. I can see next season. I don't think we're going to get a striker in this summer, so I can see the striking competition going to be between Giroud and Walcott mainly for that position. In terms of number 10, I don't think it'll affect the team any more than that. You'll still see Ozil in number 10, and from what we heard from Santi, he'll still be there next season, and he'll be playing with the Cock unless a more proven DM comes in. But yeah, no, Draxler left, Sanchez right, either Walcott or Giroud up front. The physicality's good, and yeah.
Very good, very good. What do we think the true sort of what's a price that if you were to say we got Draxler for, what's the price that you would say that's a good deal, or what's the price where you'd sort of be scratching your head going, I'm not quite sure he'll be able to live up to that? We'll start with Chris.
Oh, that's a loaded good question if ever I got one. I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult if you're talking about certain players moving for ridiculous fees. I mean, the sort of money that Raheem Sterling, for example, is being quoted as going for. I mean, obviously he's English, so that automatically makes him 68 billion times more expensive and 94% more shit. But I mean, I suppose. Realistically, John touched on it earlier. You've got to look at Schalke's financial plight. They're in a position where they can't afford to turn down a very decent offer. What I hope we don't do is go in the old derisory Dick Law, Gary Cahill-esque offer and go in with 20 quid and a packet of pork scratchings. I mean, we need to go with a sensible and realistic bid. And the other thing as well is obviously, like John also said, there will be teams looking at him as well. So if we're going to get a player like that, we need to act fast. If I had to put my head on the block, I would probably say something in the region of 25 to 30 million euros. I would have thought would get them talking, and then obviously you've got to put the wages on top. So what's that? Sterling, probably about 22 million pounds sterling, which when you think of a player of his age and the longevity he would give us, and you think that Mesut Ozil at a similar age cost double, I think it would represent pretty decent business if we can get him for that sort of price.
John, same question.
I would say I would never go north of 30 million on him. I wouldn't very top end. I'd say 28 million. But I think you could probably get him, like Chris said, between 22 to 25. I know he used to have a buyout clause, which was around that sort of fee. Whether he's still got that.
€6 million, I think, John, back in the day,
Whether that's been changed in any way, I don't know, and whether his buyout clause changes because they're not in the Champions League next season, all that kind of thing can affect it. But yeah, 28 million top whack, really, I think you'd be looking at. But yeah, it would only be. I mean, if I think the difference is now is that if we go for a player, unless it's sort of getting into the 40, 50 millions for a player, then we can compete with teams like Man United and stuff for the price of a player now. Maybe not in terms of wages. So then it comes down to where the player actually wants to move.
Tom, what would be your, if you had a £50 million purse to go purchase Draxel? What would be your bid?
I'm more of around the £20 million mark. Simply one, because Schalke need to buy players this summer. Because they, as we know, they got rid of Sidney Sam and Kevin Prince Boateng, which is they're not poor players, they're good players in their positions, and they're not that fruitful with their finances, so they're going to need money to bring in many players. So they're going to need to sell. They're not going to be able to command a massive fee because of their financial restraint, and the fact they don't have Champions League football anymore. All these factors are coming in. Plus, as John talked about earlier, Draxler hasn't played many games last season, which also comes into a factor when adding up the price. So yeah, the £20 million mark seems like a fair. Like, I can't see if you bid 20 million, they'd like look at that like that's like a Gary Cahill example, like Chris said. So yeah, 20 million for me is about right.
Awesome. Let's talk about another player who obviously there's probably a big fire to this because there's tons and tons of smoke now. So the first question I'm going to ask to you, Tom, I'm going to come right back at you, is a guy named Petr Cech. What % chance do you put on him putting on an Arsenal shirt before, September 1st when the window closes?
I can see why you didn't call it the ITK podcast now.
We are all out of the know. That is the OTK.
Exactly.
All out of the know.
But okay, so I'm going to put a number. I'm going to go with 93.2% chance of him joining.
Sounds like a very scientific number you put on that. What's the reasoning?
Well, all the right noises are occurring. Like you're not seeing Arsenal deject the idea. You're not seeing Chelsea say he's not go. We don't want him to go. Well, we're not saying we don't want him to go, but he's not going to go. You're seeing Rosicky talk about him in a way which is like, I'd like to see him at the club. He's a good player. And obviously you've got all the newspapers across the whole of the journalistic world reporting it at the same time. I think it's a deal that should be done, and I think it's going to happen. Especially with him coming out with comments that he wants to stay in London, he wants Champions League football, and who's the only other club in London that has Champions League football? Well, so yeah, I mean, I don't know what the other guys think on it. I know, Chris, you have reservations about the removal of another keeper we have to make space for him. So I don't know if you give your views on that.
Yeah, it's a weird one, really. I mean, first of all, I tweeted a short time before we started this, actually, and I said I'm willing to hold my hands up. There they are. It does look as though it's going to happen. Now, just to clarify, I don't think I ever sat here and said Cech would be terrible. He's the worst goalkeeper in the world. Don't do it. I still think he's got a lot to give. I'm a little bit on the fence as to whether we're getting him at his peak powers. But I think, at this sort of stage of his career, you've got to take the chance now and sort of, say, well, let's give it a go. It's not going to be a huge amount of money, and the amount of experience he has as a winner has a real big say in the deal, and essentially you are taking a very important part of a big rival, and there's a psychological edge as much as anything else in it as well. My kind of reservations, like you said there, Tom, would be just about who we're getting rid of. There's a few rumours circulating, and that David Ospina's family have failed to settle in London, and there's talk of a move to Turkey. Seems like a very strange place to go if you haven't settled in London, but hey ho. Equally, some people have said that. There's a lot of noise. Is that you, Tom?
Yeah,
that's better. Tom was being taken over by aliens then. Yeah, there's a lot of there was a lot of talk about the Turkey move, and there's also some talk that potentially it's just as straightforward as that he's been told that we're signing Jack, and he'd rather go and seek first team football elsewhere because realistically he knows he won't get it. I was talking to John about this the other day, and I'll throw to John in a second. It seems very strange that Szczesny was pretty much out the door 6 weeks ago, and then all of a sudden we're here and it looks like he'll stay. I'm not surprised that Szczesny will stay. I think Wenger is, he's trying his very best to get him, as Arsenal's future goalkeeper. And who better to learn from than Petr Cech? That's what I would definitely say. So yeah, my views are I think it will happen. Bit of breaking news earlier on. Well, I say breaking news. I don't know whether it was announced that the goalkeeping coach Tony Roberts was leaving Arsenal.
Yeah, that was.
There we go. Well, he's left today, and he's gone to Swansea. I know David Price, the other photographer, tweeted out, and of course there was news that Stuart McFarlane, our club photographer, has followed Petr Cech and his management company tonight. So there was obviously even more smoke without fire. The wonderful world of social media. Somebody knows you're having a shit before you drop your trousers. But it does seem likely to happen. So I would say, yeah, it seems likely. I hope it works out because at the end of the day, like all of you guys, I want Arsenal to be title contenders. Cech has been world class. Is he still world class? Time will tell. But if we're getting rid of one of our two goalkeepers, we have to replace him, and there's no better person to replace than a rival of a top four and a Champions League level goalkeeper.
John, what percentage are you putting on this transfer to happen?
I'm going to go all out and give it 99.9%. I'm really sticking my neck out on this. And I'm not going to name names, but I'll blame someone at some point if it doesn't happen. But the whole thing with Cech, I mean, besides the fact he's a better goalkeeper than what we've got, that's obviously it's down to opinion. Some people might not agree with that. It's what I think. I think part of the reason of Szczesny's staying is he's homegrown. A lot of the younger players have grown up with him there. He does have a genuine affection for the club, despite the fact he has been an idiot for the last 2 years. Some of the things he's done. If you can get those sorted, I think he's got the ability to go on and be as good as, say, David De Gea has been this season for Man United, and keep going beyond that. I didn't have a massive problem with Ospina. He always felt like there was something going to go wrong at some point with him, which I know you can get with all keepers, and we had that with Szczesny, we had it with Fabianski, but Ospina, he just always felt like he was, he's good, but that's it, he's just good, you sort of lukewarm to him. It's like, yeah, he's done nothing to offend me, but I wouldn't want to have a conversation with him, that kind of thing. But one of the big things with Cech, I think, obviously other than weakening Chelsea, is that even if you didn't play him, he's such a big boost to the dressing room. I like the older experienced players we've got, but none of them have really won anything. None of them, I would say, I like Arteta and I like Rosicky and I like Mertesacker. I know Mertesacker's obviously won the World Cup, but he's not. You don't see him as a leader. I could imagine if Cech was in the dressing room, even if he wasn't playing and it's half time in a game or we're losing playing badly, whether he'd be grabbing players around the throat and sort of throwing them up against the wall and trying to slap some sense into them, or just the way he talked to him, you could just imagine he's very inspiring just to have someone with that much ability, with all the medals he's got and the experience he's got, the tournaments he's been to, just brings so much more to the team. And I think that's going back to your earlier question about what three positions, I could have easily answered that with two of those positions, and say like goalkeeper and midfield, and one of any other position as long as he's a genuine leader, because that's, I think, something we really miss in the team.
Yeah, good Good point there about the leadership of Czech. Let's Spaceman Spiff, who was at Boo Boo Buna on
Yes.
Twitter, has asked us, and something that we've talked a little bit about on here, and obviously in the our WhatsApp group, is if we sign Czech, obviously Ospina, Szczesny's going to have to go. Ospina has done a great job for us the second half of the year. Do you think the reason that Szczesny is the homegrown player and he is as stupid as he's been, he's well liked, or would you like to see somebody like Ospina who was given a small chance and took it by the horns, but not really given a full chance? Chris, who would you like to rather keep? If you were in Arsene Wenger's shoes, would you keep Ospina and get rid of Szczesny, or vice versa?
It's a really difficult question because me personally, just basing upon who I like and what I've seen over the season, I would keep Ospina because I championed his cause. Okay, yes, I'm quite biased because I'd seen him play in the French league for a couple of years before, and I knew a bit about him, whereas most people, not being Johnny Big Bollocks, but most people probably not really heard of him before the World Cup. So I guess I was a little bit biased, and there's the sort of the hipster creeping out of me of wanting somebody who nobody'd heard of to be good. But no, I liked the calm he brought. But then on the flip side, the other side of me sort of goes, yeah, but like John said, Szczesny is homegrown. I do want to see the Jack Wilshers, the Kieran Gibbs, and the Szczesnys come through. And I remember when he made his debut at Old Trafford, and he just came in and okay, yeah, you could clearly see from that point he was very arrogant. But there was just a part of him you went, oh, he's one of us. He's coming out of nowhere and he's had a blinder. And you when you support a club, you would know this, Joe's working for a club, you want to see that the lad that used to turn the lights off as a trainee come through and play for the first team. So I hope it works for Szczesny, and I hope this is the kick up the arse it needs. And like John said, having a winner, that's the key word, a winner in Petr Cech, and potentially Petr Cech's goalkeeping coach, which we haven't touched on. That could really improve Szczesny. So
I think that will be a definite. Sorry to interrupt, Chris. I think that will be definite if Czech does come. His goalkeeping coach, whose name I can't remember now, Lola something.
Yeah,
not Lola, something like that.
I think you're absolutely right, John. I think that's going to be a key thing, and that will improve the goalkeepers, and Czech himself will improve Szczesny. So I'm kind of sitting on the fence. What I would say is if I'm David Ospina and we're signing Petr Cech, I'm probably looking at it going, realistically, I've had a good year. I've probably got my value up. I'll get another signing on fee. I would move because, like John said, Szczesny's more likely to be kept because of his age, because of his homegrown element. So I suppose for his career, Ospina's the right one to go. But yeah, I'll miss him. I'll miss the no-necked assassin.
Let's go to Tom. Let's make sure Tom's aliens are all gone. Because I want to hear from him on this, and it does sound like the aliens have left his body for the moment. Who would you keep, Tom? Would you keep Ospina, or would you rather have Szczesny as the number 2?
Can you hear me first of all?
We can. No crackles, no pops, no extraterrestrial voices.
I would keep Szczesny, and I feel I've been a massive supporter of Ospina when he's played for us. I think he should start the FA Cup final. I think it was unfair that he didn't start the FA Cup final. I think more so now. I feel a bit more like that Wenger. If there was rumours of Czech, and if Wenger knew at the time at the FA Cup final that Czech could come in, and he had an idea because he's the type of person to think forward and think ahead. And if he did have it in his mind that Czech was going to be coming in, or he was going to bring someone in because he wasn't convinced with the 2 keepers we had, that it was a bit hard on Ospina not to start him for the FA Cup final if he thought that could be his last game. And I feel I don't know. Maybe it's just the softy in me, but that does come forward. Yeah, I'd keep Szczesny on Ospina. I've never felt like he'd drop a bollock. For us, I've never really felt like fully confident that he could be a title-winning goalkeeper because he's not a world-class goalkeeper. He is a very good goalkeeper, and Czech is that step up that I think we do need, and we've been crying out for a great goalkeeper for so many years now. I think it's the right move. I wish Ospina, if he does leave, all the best, because he is a top quality goalkeeper and he's done great for us. So fair play to him.
Awesome. Well said, John. I think you sort of made it known that you sort of like Szczesny. Any reason to keep Ospina over Szczesny?
I'm going
to make you play devil's advocate to your own argument.
Yeah, no, the season he's had, yeah, you could argue keeping him, and I have stuck it to Szczesny at times this season on the radio show and on the podcast because of the stupid things he's done, and he deserved to be dropped. I've always said I thought he'd be the better keeper in the long run. The fact that Wenger is always looking like he's going this way about it shows a bit more of his old ruthless side, which I certainly enjoy. And also, I have heard rumours that there's a fantastic neck transplant surgery, room in Turkey. So, it's quite high on their list of medical abilities out there. So, maybe it's a win-win for Ospina.
So we are saying that if we do go to Turkey, be careful for black market neck nappers. Instead of having somebody take your kidney and put it on the black market, watch out for your neck. The breaking news: Jan Villa is still in London for a medical.
Did Sebastian Frey drive him?
Yes. And Ben Fairthorne is still waiting him to come out of the medical room to make sure he's not going to have to delete his Twitter account. Let's just talk about one more player here. But before, I don't want to go too long. I know it's Saturday night, Saturday afternoon here in the States. I don't want to keep everybody waiting. Plus, there's so much more to talk about. We're going to have to do another one of these hopefully soon. So let's talk about one more player. Let's talk about Jeffrey Kondogbia. We faced Monaco in the Champions League. And he put on a good display, and possibly knew that it was his best way to try out sort of for Arsenal. What, Chris? You're sort of the French football expert. Kondogbia, what do we make of that? There are whispers in different places on Twitter and the internet about it, possibly about him also going to Italy. So what do you think? What is the latest that you know? As well as, is this something that we're seriously in for, and what's the realistic possibility of him coming in and betting into our midfield?
Well, firstly, I'm no expert. I'm really just one of those blokes that watches a lot of football because I've got nothing else to do in my life. No,
an expert in my book. An expert.
Expert will do. Frustrated hipster. Kondogbia is a strange one for me. I mean, he's one of those players that you look at and you go, the lad's got everything, but has he? Is it all going to come together? He's 22. For my money, I think where Arsenal are right at the moment, we've touched on bringing in top quality in Czech, and for me, if this is the summer that we're just going to add real top quality rather than pad the squad out, we need to be aiming higher, I think, than Kondogbia, not just in ability but in age. It seems silly to mix. Coquelin's only 23, I think, is he? 23, I think.
23, 24.
There you go. I don't really want a 22-year-old alongside a 24-year-old. I want somebody who's sort of 27, 28, who is a bit more experienced, who's going to come with that behind them. And I think Kondogbia's style will actually. Tom's been taken over by aliens again. I think it's a very weird noise. I think that Kondogbia's style will actually suit the Italian league. There was some news tonight, actually, I retweeted it. James Horncastle, who's very well respected in the Italian sort of journalistic circles for BT Sport, he actually tweeted a picture of Jeffrey Kondogbia apparently signing documents with Inter Milan this afternoon.
That's actually Daniel, who is at Infernicus. I want to hope I said that right. As well as looks like Danny just tweeted at us as well with a Sky Sports. So it looks like that rumor about him is actually true, which we're breaking news here. We're breaking news.
We are
to you
breaking
folks
news, literally
on,
breaking news.
on the
And-
OTK. I prefer my news sprained instead of broken. The recovery time is much better.
It is.
But we've been going so hard at this. It looks like we're going to have to break news. But
Shattering news, no doubt. Shattering news.
Absolutely.
And do you know what's really funny about the conduct? If he does go to Inter as well, is that they've only just let Jan and Villa go back to Russia after his loan deal. So it's almost like they're signing the new Jan and Villa. But no, the kid's talented, and he might have a Patrick Vieira-esque rise where he comes through Serie A, as not as an unknown, but as a lesser known footballer, and gathers steam and comes through. Pogba did the same. He became a giant at Juve when he was really not really well known at United. So, I wish him all the best. He wasn't my choice. He still wouldn't be my choice. Most people know who I'd like in that position, but yeah, good luck to the guy. I think in Italy, I think he'll do very well if that's where he ends up.
Let's transition a little bit as well, just in general. I want to say let me find him on Twitter here again. I want to say it was Booba Buna who was saying he doesn't really see anybody really making a massive move until the likes of the PSGs, the Real Madrids, and the sort of the JJ Moneybags of the clubs, as we call them over here in the U.S., really start to spend some money in the chips fall. I know there have been rumors a little bit about Benzema again. That would be pending upon if Sergio Aguero was able to go to Real Madrid. But what do you think? It seems like right now there have been some moves made, and it seems like obviously there's the ball is starting to roll. John, let's go to you. Do you think that the bigger teams, the Barcelonas, the Bayern Munichs, and the Real Madrids are going to be the ones who really dictate this year's market?
I think Real Madrid will to a certain extent. They definitely need to buy another midfielder. There's reports out about them looking at just about every defensive midfielder you can think of. They've been linked with, or players, saying they'd love to play for Real Madrid. Obviously, it's written in Marca, which is basically owned by Real Madrid. So yeah, might as well have been them pretending it's a player wanting to go there. So that will definitely make moves happen. They maybe need another centre-back because I think Pepe's contract is up soon and Ramos still hasn't signed one. Them and PSG are the two out of the bigger clubs will make signings. Obviously Man United as well. Who they are going to get or go for, there's so many names linked. It's really hard to call it. I don't think you'll see a massive amount at Bayern Munich, or if you do, it'll probably be players that a lot of people haven't heard of or just younger talent. They did quite a few last year as well, and did a couple of deals in January that would sign in the summer of younger players. So I think once you see PSG will get definitely going for a wide player. Where that player will be from, there's talks about Di Maria, which if that happens then Man United get more money and then they can go spend their money, and then obviously De Gea then maybe moves to Madrid. Then Madrid then go after their other player once they've signed De Gea, and it all just, you need that first domino to fall of sort of the big signing. The interesting one for me will be Man City and Chelsea, actually, and what they spend and who they go for. Because Man City definitely need players, especially English players, to fill their quota. And I just don't know where they're going to get them from. But as for targets we're looking at, how that will affect us, I don't think necessarily midfield, possibly if Schneiderlin and other players, depending on who it is we go for, possibly. But I think most of our targets are sort of not really on the radar of the other teams. They've got their names out there. As for just quickly touching on Benzema, shall I be brave? I'll be brave, and I'll say there is more chance of me playing for Arsenal than Karim Benzema signing for Arsenal this summer, or any team. Florentino Perez absolutely loves Benzema. I'd be as adventurous to say he'd be more willing to sell Cristiano Ronaldo than he would Karim Benzema. He is that obsessed with the player. He is the only striker that football club has. Even if they signed Aguero, they still need at least two strikers. The whole team really does depend on him. He's as important to that team as Ronaldo is.
Awesome. Tom, let's make sure that your aliens are gone again. And I want to come to you about, do you think that financial fair play has anything to do with this? it seems like some teams are actually able to hold on to a few more of their higher end players, and like John was saying, that the Bayern Munichs and the Madrids are starting to make these sort of lesser known, quote unquote, transfer of players that a lot of people may not have heard about unless you're like Chris and John and are hipsters and watch every continental game as well as the EPL. Do you think that financial fair play has anything to do with that right now, and will have any effect on this window and the next window in 2016?
Can you?
I think no. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah?
you're back.
There we go. There you go.
There we go. Okay. So I think it should have an impact. Whether it will is always the next problem. I've never really. When the idea of financial fair play came in, I was like, great, this is good for Arsenal. Arsenal have been true to their word about their profits and their stability and everything, and Chelsea and Man City have been whoring themselves out with their money to everyone. But it hasn't really worked out in our favour as much as I thought it would, to be honest. I hope it has a bearing, but last season I guess Man City got that £50 million fine. They've obviously hopefully learned from their mistake that they won't re-have that problem, but I don't think it's going to have too much of a bearing, if I'm honest. If you're looking at the way that City are being linked with like a £40 million rejection for Sterling, if they're going to throw 40 million at a 20-year-old, I'd like dread to think how much money they can throw at any other targets they might have in the window. Chelsea, I don't think you'll see spending loads. I think they're quite a finished article. They're the most finished article, like Chris actually brought up on a previous podcast. So I think you'll see maybe a squad player and maybe a marquee signing coming for Chelsea, but not the millions they normally spend. In terms of other teams around Europe, no, like Barcelona and Real Madrid have got different embargoes about transfers going on at the moment. I'm not really well versed enough to comment. So I'd say no. I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact. I think we've seen Man City throwing the money around, as I've said. I don't think Chelsea need to spend too much money. I don't think we need to spend loads of money. Man United are probably the team that need to spend, as well as Man City, the most money. But financial fair play, I'm not really sure is going to come into that too much.
Just quickly, Jason, coming in on that,
Yeah.
there is talk that's being reduced, the restrictions on FFP. There's no real clarification on what exactly they're reducing or when it's happening, but teams are basically going on the assumption that, oh well, okay, it doesn't really matter, so we'll just go out and spend. I mean, Inter Milan were due for a fine, as were AC Milan, and they basically need to spend a hell of a load of money to get their teams back to where they should be in Europe, because neither team are even in the Europa League next season. But they couldn't really do it because of FFP. Now, it seems like they've just been given the green light to go spend as much money as you want. One rumour I did hear, transfer-wise, that it may, I don't know whether it will trigger too much, is Antoine Griezmann possibly is a target for PSG. I think they were talking some like 40 million euros, something like that, maybe even north of that for Griezmann. I know that's from Atletico Madrid, but obviously once you get one big transfer, it sort of gets things moving a bit.
And also just to come in on the back of that as well, Jose, from what John's saying there, PSG are one of the bigger clubs to be affected by this, and they're one of the biggest to challenge it. For those that don't know, they pretty much spunked their entire budget for the year on David Luiz, which is quite funny, really. But they felt that they had to pay over the odds, and they did, and that's what's restricted them doing big business this summer so far, because they've essentially only really got about 14 million tops, and they're looking to spend 40, 50, and that's the main reason why you've not seen them go after Di Maria as of yet. There was also a lot of bullshit about Lacazette going to PSG and being loaned back to Lyon. I called bullshit on that at the time, and I stick by that. I think that's a load of old crap. But they are looking to change their squad around, and they are seriously looking at 3 or 4 players. And if Ibra does move, which you just never know with Ibra because it's Ibra, but if he does go, then they'll probably be looking for probably a backup striker, but they'll certainly need to spend money because nobody's going to go to PSG for sort of 7 or 8 quid. It's going to be 10, 15 million because Cavani will be pushed through the middle and they'll look to bring in somebody else. So PSG are one of the big movers, and like John said, I think it will be when one makes a move. Especially even the goalkeeping merry-go-round. I think if you see if De Gea moves, that means probably Lloris will move from Spurs, probably end up at United, means Spurs need a new goalkeeper. There's a lot of merry-go-round. Same with the defensive midfielders. There's a lot of clubs after them. So I think it will take one club to move, and then we'll all be scrabbling around like twats on the 31st of August trying to sign players as usual.
There is also just one last bit quickly. A lot of the continental clubs, I think Barcelona are one of them, but AC Milan have definitely got a presidential election before the season starts, which obviously means that they come out and say, which is where the Ibrahimovic rumours started. So they were saying that they were signing Ibrahimovic, Kondogbia, oh God, who else? There was about 3 or 4 other players, and it was obviously, I'm going to sign these players, re-elect me as president. Well, there's another one going on at Barcelona, I think, in the summer. And I'm not sure about Madrid, but there's a few clubs having presidential elections. Obviously, they do run the clubs in a different way on the continent. But whenever there's one of those elections, there's always talk of, we are going, if you elect me, I will get this player in at the club. And just that's how they do it. So just when you see a certain name linked with a club, just check whether the club's having an election first, and then it's a bit easier to tell whether the rumour's going to be true or not.
And keep an eye on Napoli as well.
Yeah,
because that's a club that have got a shift, a lot of high earners, a club that have got no manager currently. Well, actually, no, they have.
No, they have now, yeah.
But they're very much a team that need to shift players out, and they've got probably 3 or 4, one of which a certain Argentine centre forward that will probably have to shift because they're not in the Champions League. So that if at Italy, you might see more business than many other places this summer, whether it be small business or not, but it will be business.
I just want to say that if you elect me as the president of Arsenal, I will sign Cristiano Messi. I will cut them off each at the waist, and we will have Messi's legs and Cristiano's torso and head. Actually, take that back. We'll keep Messi's face because Cristiano uses way too much hair gel. I heard that the PSG transfer was actually more for David Luiz's hairstyling products than it was for the actual player himself. But that's not confirmed. Again, I don't want to allegedly. There's
a lot of tape for the blooper reel as well.
Yes.
So I want to shift away from talking about players coming in, and let's wrap up this last 10 to 15 minutes. Again, quick rapid fire succession. Let's start with John. Let's go your first 3 out the door who are still on the books at Arsenal from what we would consider the sort of the senior team, the older guys. Who do you think are the first 3 to go, and where do you think they're going to end up?
Podolski is definitely gone for my money. I think I said this ages ago on one of the pods that I guessed he'd end up in Turkey or Greece or somewhere. I can't remember which club it is he's been linked with now.
Fenerbahce.
Is it Fenerbahce? Yeah,
Fenerbahce.
I just guessed there because the age he's at, and they pay big wages for those sort of age players. So he would be one. Joel Campbell. I don't know. Well, I suppose you can call him a first-team player, but he's a bigger name, I suppose, than some of the others. Somewhere in Spain, I really wouldn't know where. It would be for a team, I would guess. I don't know, from sort of anyone from below Valencia down in the table. Take your pick. And then as for a third one, Ospina would seem like the logical one because of the Czech move. But if you wanted another name, I don't think, as in terms of first team player, you'd really get one. Maybe Sonogo, possibly, might be one. Whether he gets loaned out again or not, but yeah, that would be my call for it.
Let's go, Tom. Let's go. Who are your first 3 out?
Podolski, as John said. I don't think we can stray too far from John's examples, to be honest. So yeah, Podolski, Ospina / Szczesny, although Ospina's probably more likely. And then I'd go with Sonogo. Actually, he really hasn't shown his quality. If there is quality there, I don't want to judge if he does have the potential. I really can't see it. I just can't see it. I feel sorry for him, but I just can't see it. So yeah, they're my 3. Yeah.
Chris, your three. Do they differ at all?
I was just going to say I'll try and find someone different because I agree with the guys there. I will say I do agree on Sonogo, but I don't think it'll be permanent. I think he'll have another loan because I don't think Arsenal's quite given up yet. I think he probably wants to see because in fairness to Yaya, he didn't really play at Palace, and I think Wenger thought he would play a lot more. Okay, some of it was injury, but I think he thought he'd get more games. I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up somewhere like Newcastle actually. As for another two. It's difficult to say. I mean, I think you're looking at fringe players. I mean, again, I agree with the guys. The goalkeeping situation, one of the two seemingly likely to be Ospina at the moment, would be a logical one. I honestly, I don't think I can differ from what the guys have said. Maybe Jenkinson. There's a few things about Southampton wanting a right back because Klein looks like he's going to go to Liverpool, but they've signed this lad from Sporting Lisbon, I think it was. They've brought in, so it looks like he'll replace. Yeah, he is. So I don't know whether they still want Jenks, but then obviously if the Schneiderlin thing is ongoing, that could end up being a make weight. And then barring that, I mean, the only big name that I could even think would be remotely possible would be Jack Wilshere, and I don't see it. But at the same time, if the money's right. And if the stars align, you just never know, do you? If a Man City come in with ridiculous money, would we be tempted? I don't think so, if I'm honest. And I know Jack said he would only leave if we said we didn't want him there. But if you look at the competition for places, he's going to find it tough. So I hope not, but I can't really go outside what the other guys have said, really. I can't see anyone else other than a player that we haven't really mentioned, a fringe player leaving, to be honest.
Could I just quickly, John? Who was your second one again? I think I missed it.
Joel Campbell.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear that. Yeah, okay.
Just to really throw myself under the bus and get some serious abuse on Twitter for the things I've already said, just to add on top of it, a possible real proper first team player. I'm not saying it will happen or that I want it to happen before anyone really abuses me, but I do still think there's a possibility that Cazorla could go.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair.
What about Debuchy?
Can't see it this summer.
No.
I can see it
next summer, yeah.
Next summer, yeah.
Not this summer.
I think it's more likely that Jenkinson of the two, because I think Wenger would see if you look at it, if he lets Debuchy go, then he's essentially got a kid in Bellerin who, however talented, he's not going to learn from Jenkinson, is he? Whereas he will still learn from Debuchy, and you've got experience. So when we go to those away grounds, the Stoke, the cliche grounds, that's when you want a Debuchy. That's probably not when you want a Bellerin, and that was shown actually when Bellerin got undone in that Stoke game. So I don't think it would make logical sense to get rid of your experienced player. If anything, like Dom has said a few times, I'd keep all three. But John's right. The Santi stuff. I know a few people have said, well, he modelled the kit, so he's going to stay. Well, we know how that's worked out before. Exactly. So, and that was very much a Puma thing rather than a club thing. So, no, I think with Santi, it just depends on. It depends on what the club is almost in a sort of a state like we're like this. Do we bring in another defensive midfielder, a box-to-box midfielder, or an attacking midfielder, or both? If we bring in both. Then yes, I think Sandy will probably move on. But I think John will join me in this. I'm sure Tom will as well. I'd rather that he didn't, because as far as I'm concerned, they can keep him in a box for the rest of his life. I love him.
Awesome. Yeah. Let's hit on one more important thing. We talked about the Arsenal goalkeeper coach. What was it, Roberts or Robbins? Roberts. I want to say Tony Robbins, the motivational speaker, and I know it's not right. But Tony Roberts leaving. We know that we were in the past sort of hamstrung transfer-wise by the Emirates building of the stadium and getting through all of that. Do you think that this coaching staff currently, maybe one that Wenger has sort of said, okay, these guys may not be number one at their job in the world, but they're still decent guys and good coaches, and we'll use them and then see what we can't find once our financial situation gets a little bit better. We saw Chef Forsyth brought in, obviously, Pat Rice, who's an absolute legend, stepped down, and Steve Bull was brought in. But now we're starting to, I think, to see a few more sort of tinkerings in the back rooms now. Do you think that is a sign of where we are financially as well, that we're able to go out maybe and attract a larger name positional coach or just sort of first team coach that we can bring in to help Wenger with training and individual skills like that with players, as opposed to a few years ago when we maybe not have been able to attract the largest talented coaches because of our finance? Do you think that's playing into this at all right now? It's sort of the coaching transfer budget.
I think there's definitely an element of that, of the fees that you can pay. I'd imagine that Shad Forsyth obviously comes from your side of the world, Jace, and I know people in that sort of field obviously do get paid very well, obviously with the German national team as well, highly regarded. So you're going to see more of his stuff come in next season, because I know he didn't have all of his staff this year. The Tony Robbins leaving, I've done it now as well. Tony Robbins going to Swansea. Obviously I think that's part of the Czech thing if that all comes off. I know there was a few people were disappointed that it was him walking out the door and not Jerry Payton. David Seaman, to be one, actually did tweet about it. So that's a little bit concerning. But I think definitely finance has got a part to do with it, because I know some people will say, well, it's a coach, you're not paying him wages like you do a player, but you've got to have the right facilities. Some people will just say, no, I'm not going to work with, okay, you've got £1 million facility, but I'm used to working in a facility where it's £5-6 million, and you've got this equipment and this setup, and that's the way I want to run things, and I know I've got to have all my own staff. So the redevelopment of the youth team, like under Andres Yonkers. And then you've got obviously Shad coming in. And I think a tiny bit as well, perhaps maybe the fact that Steve Ball came in as Wenger's assistant and maybe opened him up to the idea of letting more people do the coaching. Because he's always been very hands-on his entire career. And from what you read and from people who, some of the people we're lucky enough to know who have access to the club in different ways, there seems to be more input from other coaches there at the club. So I think it's a combination of all of them, but in my opinion, it's only a good thing, the people that we're hiring.
Chris, your thoughts on the situation?
Yeah, again, I hate to sort of just nod along with John, but everything he said was spot on. There's sometimes you've got to bring the right people in to settle the right players, and make the right players feel comfortable in their environments and their training environments. The goalkeeping situation, as John's touched on there with Czech, could be interesting. And as we touched on earlier on as well, his coaches are clearly very, very high level, and they can only improve the other goalkeepers we've got at the club. Szczesny and the Martinezes of this world. So I think it's important. Also with the release of the younger players this summer, that's another load of younger players gone. Are we now going to invest in bringing in some more young players? And if we are they going to need specific coaches as well? It was proven last summer with the Shad Forsyth sort of coming in that things can change. Sometimes you just need a bit of a clean brush to sweep through and start things over again. So I'm all for it. I'm not even against us bringing in sort of coaches for roles that you might not even expect. So whether that be commercial side or a sort of a financial side, sometimes it just needs a little bit of a spring clean, some new ideas and a fresh coat of paint. So I'm all for it, and if it gets results on the pitch or anything that can help the results on the pitch or take the pressure off the people that get those results is important.
Tom, your quick thoughts on this as we wrap up.
Coaching. I think, of course, the Jerry Payton thing is an issue for a lot of people, and hopefully, if this Czech deal happens and the goalkeeping coach with Czech does come in, then hopefully that'll ratify that problem. I think our coaching staff is pretty well versed. We're one of the biggest clubs not just in England but in Europe, and you expect a club like us to have top quality backroom staff anyway. So the only sort of backroom staff I've always had an issue with isn't, if you can call them backroom staff, but is on the board side of things, and in terms of the passion for the club. On that side of stuff, I felt that maybe the board is more of a financial passion than a sporting and an Arsenal passion. but I guess that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, no, I agree with the guys. Goalkeeping should be sorted hopefully with this check thing, and Schaffelsheim, all the fruits of his labour seem to have come to light in the second half of last season. So yeah, I think we're pretty well set.
One last thing from each of you before we go. The best Petr Cech pun that you've seen on Twitter, Chris. We'll start with you.
God. well, I tweeted one myself yesterday where I said I was just nipping on to check if we'd signed anyone, and then hung my head in shame. And then I think you came back with something even worse.
I believe it would make our goalkeeping situation that much better.
Yes, indeed you did. Yes, that was very, very terrible. So yeah, I can't really speak for any bad puns, I'm afraid.
Let's John, your favorite / and or worst Petr Cech.
My favourite and worst, it was the picture of Arsene and Jose on the sidelines at Stamford Bridge, where Arsene's confronting Jose, and I think the line was, "You better check yourself before you wreck yourself," which is definitely my favourite of the bunch. But yeah, there's been some great ones. I think is there not a there's a Checky Nando's account as well.
I love that one. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so yeah, go give that guy a follow. Just for the genius Twitter handle.
Tom, your favorite, best and or worst Petr Cech.
I'm not sure if it's correct, but it was something like, I've just come on to check Twitter to see if Wenger has penned a check for Czech, and then to see if he's checked into the Emirates.
Oh.
Cringy.
He was making sure he checked all the boxes on that tweet. Oh,
yeah.
Rim shot. That's going to do it for the first Out of the Know vidcast. Thank you guys for watching. We're going to let you get back to your Saturday. We want to give a big special shout out to the guys at a Bird Camp Wonderland who were actually presented by a Bird Camp Wonderland. Those guys do a great job, and they'll be back during the season, and you'll be able to listen to the wonderful tones of Danny and Gunnar Gimli as they talk Arsenal each week. And I'm sure Chris will be running the radio show again, which will be back on after games as well. So a big shout out to them, and thank you to them for letting me borrow and steal these guys to come in during the summer and talk some Arsenal. So definitely check them out. You can check out old podcasts. They're on iTunes and at a Bird Camp. They're at www.abirdcampwonderland.co.uk. So definitely give them a check out. I know Danny's done a great job this season on their website, keeping up to date on all of the transfers for every team in the Premier League. So please go check that out because it's some really good information. He's got, all the teams, where they went out for, and who's come in and for what amount. So it's a great way to keep up on all the transfer news this season. So on behalf of John and Chris and Tom, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. And hopefully, I'm hoping that we will be back sometime on Saturday or Sunday of next week, and hopefully we'll have some more news. And hopefully, if you want to check back in, we'll update you on the goalkeeping situation. I couldn't help it. But thank you guys for joining me tonight, and thank you guys for watching. And we'll see you all next week.
Cheers. Goodbye.
See you later.